Nicole, let's start with how you really got started, because it was a different time and fashion's changed so much, as you know, and being a fashion designer now and starting then was so different, and it's so much more difficult now in different ways.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always a difficult business, but is my mic on?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I couldn't tell. Anyway, so it's always a difficult business, and I learned that firsthand because I was working for a company, and it went Chapter 11, like right in the middle of like my job and everything. And so I left with the man who was my boss, and we became business partners, and we opened up my own brand. But it was like just all overnight. We had to scramble together and get money. And so somehow we got together $100,000 between family, friends, whatever, and went into business like the next day. And but since we had such little money, we really just had to stay in business. We didn't have any extravagances like fashion shows or publicity or PR or anything like that. So we had to do everything ourselves. And we had a very, small staff. And I was like very lucky because the first year in business, my clothes sold like crazy. And I made this one dress. It was this mock tip blouson dress, which people are still copying today. And we just sold thousands of them. And we ran out of fabric, and we couldn't find enough fabric to make the dress because we had so many orders. And I was very lucky that that happened because that really gave us the money to keep going. And so we just kept, plodding along, and we got to all the department stores. We were all in like Bloomingdale's and Bergdorf's, and there were Bonwit Teller back in the day, and Lord & Taylor's, everywhere, Neiman Marcus. And then, I finally kept saying, well, I still have to have a fashion show. I still have to have a fashion show. So it took me about 8 years, and finally had a fashion show. But the business has really changed a lot because I felt like I had to work my way up and work with other designers, or, I assisted at other places. But now I feel like everybody wants to be a celebrity overnight, and, they don't want to put in the time. And also with social media now, it's gotten to be everybody's a social media star, which is great. But I don't know how it's going to all play out, but it's a very crowded room these days, so.
For sure. And then when did you have your aha moment, when you really felt like you had hit?
Well, I guess it all gets back to the fashion show because, so I had spent like 8 years saying like, oh, I have to have a fashion show, I have to have a fashion show. And I was only thinking to have like one fashion show. So, and then I was very lucky because I got Christy Turlington, I got Naomi Campbell, I got Linda Evangelista, I got all the greats for my first fashion show. And it was a big, big hit. I got the cover of Women's Wear Daily, I got the clothes in Vogue. It just, all of a sudden my life like changed overnight. But then the minute I had that fashion show, I was like, what did I get myself into? I've got to do this like twice a year now.
Right. So it was like really getting right to work. Working in this industry, but you and I talk about this all the time too. It's like, you get to this place and you're like, okay, I made it. But then there's the next day, and so you obviously, well, you're on the Legend panel, so that's kind of self-explanatory. But what I am always so inspired about you is that you're always doing the next thing. You're always doing stuff, and you're like one door kind of closes a little bit, then you open another door, which I find so inspiring. But, we know you made it, but what has made it now for you? Like, what's next where you're like, wow, okay, I really want to do this?
Well, I don't like being idle. I like always being busy, so I always am trying to think of new things to do. But I think when you're a creative person, you're always on, like 24 hours a day. I feel like I'm always thinking about what my next project or my next idea or my next thing's going to be. So I don't have like a specific one right now, but it's just like I'm always looking at the world and what I can do and what my next project's going to be.
I love that. Now we're going to do a bonus round. So everyone can just talk really briefly about how you emotionally connect to your audience. Because as we know, with social media now, so much branding is done through social media. I mean, you could buy major ad campaigns. You can billboards, television, everything. And it really comes down to the person that's behind the brand and what's really important, especially with everyone here, because so much of it's personal. And Nicole?
Well, I think, in my business, one of the most important things is you have to have a really strong identity. And you have to, as Cynthia was saying, you have to be authentic too. But I think you have to just have this clear vision, and you have to resonate with your customer, and you can't lead them astray, and you can't, sort of be on one path and then radically change to the other. But on the other hand, you've got to always, be fresh and innovative. And I feel like I have a very young staff around me, and sometimes I can be stubborn, and they want to change things a little bit, and I kind of. But I have to listen to them. I have to, and I don't want to be stuck, in a rut and say no all the time. So I really do listen to what they have to say, because I always want to move forward and move the brand forward. But I don't want to become stale ever. And I think it's important to always keep your customer, but always finding a new one. But and doing that, but not radically change who you are. So I think it's really important that I have that clear message. And also, if I get involved with charity projects or something, and of course you're always asked to do a lot of these things, but it has to be something that also works with the brand. And I've been very involved with environmental causes, and women's issues and things like that, which they make sense to me. But obviously there's things that don't align with my philosophies. But I think everything I do in the business kind of really has to be part of my own kind of DNA and feel like me and be authentic.
I love that. It's so good.